My new book, Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice, is now out and available for you to read and purchase. You can check out our website, willowhealing.org, to find a link, or you can find it on Amazon. We look forward to getting your feedback, and if you love it, please leave a review and share with your friends. Now it's time for the show. Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine Crestani with another episode of Willow Healing Matters, and today I am joined by Thomas Wurn, who is a master practitioner of NLP and a Qigong instructor. Thomas is a visionary healer and entrepreneur with a unique background that blends 15 years of wildland fire service and with his expertise in alternative healing. As the founder of Mountain Mind Tricks, he has dedicated his life to empowering others on their healing journeys. Thomas is a master practitioner of NLP, so if anyone's not sure what that is, it's neuro-linguistic programming, hypnosis, and mental and emotional release, as well as a certified in Reiki and ancient Hawaiian healing arts. So a big welcome to the show, Thomas.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your community, and I'm just excited to be here with you today.
I have never heard of ancient Hawaiian healing practices. Are they based on Lemurian kind of things coming through?
Interesting you asked that question. The school, I guess, it's like an energy mystery school based on the Big Island, and it's called Huna, which means secret in Hawaiian. But the real name is like Ho'omanaloa, which is to make like energy expand, basically. And it's different than Reiki in that there's a really strong lineage. There's about 120 generations documented from our teacher. So it's interesting you ask that question because I've asked my teachers that and they won't answer me. So they haven't answered me yet. And so there is mention of the continent Mu. So it's pretty funny.
I'm getting this like intuitive, it's like you both know the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because as soon as I read that, I was like, this is so anyone listening who doesn't know what Lemuria is, go have a look and have your mind blown. That's how I felt. So how did you shift from working with wildfires and the mountain? I love the name of your business, by the way. But working with wildfires and then shifting into all this energy work and mindset and NLP, etc.
Yeah, thank you. And so for me, about 10 years into my career, I lost somebody really close to me. And so there's this huge grief, which if you're listening, you've gone through grief, you know that grief kind of pulls up all of your baggage. It's not just the grief. And so I started to have this deeper realization that I was actually suffering pretty bad from post-traumatic stress. And it just brought on all this kind of physical ailments, mental and emotional. I mean, I was just kind of a mess afterwards for about a year. And so during that time, I had a Kundalini awakening, which I was not ready for, and made everything 100 times worse. And I knew because of my symptoms, like I had, like dilated pupils for a couple months. Like I was seeing energy. I was having all these downloads. It was kind of like, what is happening to me? I'm sure people listening and yourself can relate. And so I found acupuncture, and that really helped kind of balance out, because I would say that Kundalini experience was like God electrocuted me, right? And so it was balancing my nervous system, and that led me actually, my practitioner was like, you better go check out NLP and mental emotional release. It's really going to help with the mental aspect. And it completely changed my life, overnight in the training. And so that's how I shifted. And we can go deeper anywhere you want to. Yeah.
I feel like having that electric shock from God would be such a powerful jolt, because I've met other people too who I've guided through their awakening, and we try and do it not in baby steps, but in a way that feels you're still supported. But it almost, like when you were sharing that, it was like I just got this image of like, it's like not ripping off the Band-Aid, but ripping off the bandage and the wound just gashing open. It's like,
yeah. And it's so funny because I was in a really deep meditation. I was actually learning some deeper Qigong meditations, and I asked out loud for it. I asked God or universe, will you please open my third eye? And it was just like, boom. Like, I was launched out of my body immediately. So I did ask for it and I was not ready for what happened. So thank God I was able to integrate everything because it was a long road, It took me about 6 months to really, like, I would say, because my body would vibrate. I would have what I would say these Kundalini attacks for about 6 months. It was really intense.
It's interesting because when our body does that and shakes and vibrates, it's resetting our nervous system, right? And so it's like it be constantly recalibrating. But almost it's like I got shown when you were sharing that the shaking was allowing your body to integrate the energy more into it. But it's funny because they're saying very present today. Everyone's having a party. They're saying that, we never get more than we can handle. And even though it feels too much at the time, and how you went through that was such a wicked wide awakening, they're saying your soul was craving that. So that's why it was so quick and so abrupt as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really resonate with that. And wow, truth bumps, you have a lot of energy. This is awesome. So yeah, and the name really came from, because after that happened to me, I was still in fire for a couple years. And so then I started fighting fire so differently. Like I was tapping into the trees and the mycelium networks and really, I could talk to a tree that was 2 or 3 ridges away and look at the fire and help us guide us into actually getting there safely, or talk to the fire, or put my consciousness into like eagles or birds and like, start doing things that I couldn't talk about with my colleagues, of course. But so eventually it turned into these like mountain mind tricks is what I was doing out there. Definitely, inspired by Jedi mind tricks and all those things. So yeah, so much fun.
I love that because so often, I had an argument. So we have this land next to our house where we currently live, and they wanted to come and back burn it, right? And I have nothing against that. People want to do that. But the land was screaming at me, do not let them burn out this land. That's what I had. And I went over to talk to them, and they're like, oh, like we're going to, and I'm like, what do you do? I said, we just paid all this money to prove that when we built our house, we weren't going to disturb the land or the animals. And you're coming here and you're just going to burn it. And how they burn it, I don't agree with. They throw gasoline on the ground, which you would know disturbs the mycelium network, breaks down all the connections between organisms, kills all the bacteria happily living in the soil as well. And then they burn it. And so I remember saying to them, like, how are you going to protect all the animals and the trees? And they're like, oh, okay, well, if we find a koala in a tree, we'll dig a hole around the bottom of the tree and then it will be safe. I said, koalas don't live just in one tree, right? Like they get down to find water and then they move to another tree. And they're telling me all these things, and I have still the land yelling, do not let them burn this land. I'm like, okay, it's fine. Like, they're not going to burn you. It's okay. And then it was funny because then I had this massive fight with them, and I said, no, you're not touching our land. We don't give you permission. And then the head of the person from council came, and they're like talking to me. And then at the end of the conversation, he goes, you know what? It's probably better that you're not burning our land because then all the animals will have somewhere to go for refuge. And I was like, you know the damage that you're doing. But I love if they had that perspective that you did, where you could actually tap into the animals, you could tap into the trees and that sort of thing, because they genuinely don't want to see it all burn. And the things that we've been putting in the air makes things burn hotter and faster than they should be as well. It's not like wildfires that they're used to.
This is, there's a deeper layer to that. Maybe we'll talk about, but yeah,
Maybe
absolutely. Maybe later. Yeah. So it's so true. And I would say by the end of my career, it was so hard to watch all of that. It was almost like, wow, we're not saving anything. We're actually making everything worse. And, just being so tapped in, the trees would tell me, like, if you're actually going to do forestry, you're going to have to go around and talk to every single tree and then pick one to cut. And it might take a year to cut an acre, right? Like that's actually how the trees want to be, dealt with and communicated with. And it's just not how our world works right now. So
it's interesting because we were cutting back some eucalypts because they were getting a bit crazy, and they're all growing together in this massive clump, and we have to keep it maintained. That was part of our thing. And so my husband and I went out there and we're like, hey guys, we're just gonna chop here. And my son runs out and he's like, stop. He goes, they're screaming, like stop cutting them. And we're like, okay. And I'm like, all right guys, we're not going to cut you down, we just need to cut some of you back so that you can stay. We want you to stay. And then when I explained that, they were like, oh no, that's fine. And even I've had Even I had this one wattle tree. We got a beautiful wattle, but it was out the back of our house, and it was growing into our house. And I'm like, I'm going to cut you back because you need to grow a different way, but I don't want you to go away. And my husband got really cranky at me. He's like, oh my gosh, you butchered that tree. And I kid you not, Thomas, it doubled in size like in a month. And it came back like bigger, and it grew perfectly. It grew perfectly where it needed to. And this is the energy when we tap into trees or we tap into that wisdom, how beautiful it can look.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, so true. Yeah. So many experiences that I can talk about where, the fire out there, it's so interesting because when fire gets to a certain stage, like obviously it's already conscious, but when you start getting like a 100,000 acre fire, it's a totally different level of consciousness. It's very strong and it talks a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's even that whole practice, which I, because I do a lot with my clients with the purifying fire and letting the fire alchemize and letting things go. There's this energy, right, when you stare at a fire, but I have never seen it in that capacity and that size. So I could only imagine what you experienced, especially coming into your Kundalini energy and then being like, oh, the fire's talking to me.
Yeah, it was a pretty wild couple of years, and it got to the point maybe I wasn't the best firefighter anymore because I had different things to do in life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And also you see things from a different perspective, right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And yeah, it was a wild ride to get where I'm at now, and I'm so blessed with the tools and techniques, and I just love what I do so much now.
So how does mountain mindset fit in with that? Like you said, you were talking to the mountains and the trees and the animals, but
Yeah.
how has that now shifted with your NLP work?
Yeah, so when I did shift originally, I really started focusing on working with other first responders, firefighters, and really what came through was, gosh, there were so many, smoke jumpers or people that were coming rappelling out of helicopters, and so in those spaces, there's very specific processes. Like when you rappel out of a helicopter, there's checks and things you have to do in a certain exact step 1 through 12, and if you fail one step, like you don't pass the school and you're not going to be safe. So with that and all of like the trauma and stress and all the things, if we cleared that, I could see the people that were in that peak performance type positions, that they would perform so much better. So that's where like the mindset really came through, is learning how the trauma and baggage and negative emotions and beliefs affect you in peak performance states and how you perform, just like a professional athlete, because it's really no different. And so, eventually as I kept working with people, like my gifts just opened up even more. I could see more, I could feel more. And that's where, I would say the Huna, the energy healing, really came through for me. And the Qigong was later, which really just integrated everything. So, I think we can break all that stuff down, but that's how the mindset really came out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. And especially, from having been in such high stressful situations, to have that evolve like that, it just seems natural and really just kind of
Yeah.
falls in. But I also love how almost you kind of just kept building those energy practices, right? Like, yes, you had the mind, but a lot of people don't realize the mind's only about 20%, right? And the rest is all energy. And it's so important to work on both, because you can shift your mindset, but at the same time, if you're not energetically embodying that, nothing's going to change for you anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And, from the NLP perspective, neurolinguistic programming, that's our neurobiology, our mind, our pictures. And then the linguistics is the language that creates those pictures. And yeah, from an NLP perspective, those pictures are worth a million hormones, a million chemistry, chemicals, all the things. So our brain takes these pictures and decodes them into chemistry. That's one way it works. And it's all energy. Why I speak of that is because when we start changing the mind and the pictures, then we really start changing our programming. And when we change our programming and our energy, there's going to be transformation. It's such a powerful tool. And so that's where the NLP, the people that have trained me, I would say they've really added this mind body energy connection to the NLP. And it's just so profound because it really does change from, like you're saying, from a spiritual body, like, okay, let's get the energy in alignment and then clear the mental body, the beliefs, the root causes, that all of these decision patterns you've made, clear the emotional baggage, anger, fear, hurt from the root cause the very first time in your timeline. And then your physical body is just going to it's going to take a little bit more time, but it's going to come into alignment with all of that.
100%. And It's so true because it does take the physical body a little while to actually catch up and a little while
Yeah.
to get on with the program,
Yeah.
especially when it's so used to being a certain way for so long. And that's why
Yeah.
people think they don't get us wrong. There is spontaneous healing, and sometimes when it's the ailment is so linked to that root cause, and it's truly only there because of that root cause, it almost goes like overnight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. And I have multiple examples of this, but my most recent one was I had this bruising appear on my foot, on my right toe. And I'm like, what is that? And I was showing my husband, I'm like, it looks like I've broken my foot. He goes, it looks like you've had a injury. And I'm like, how would I not remember that? How would I not remember something running over my toe or, because
Yeah.
it was incredibly bruised. And then I was like, oh, hang on, spiritual meaning of right big toe,
Yeah. Yeah.
pain. And then once I unpacked that, I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense. And then once I acknowledged it, the bruising actually all came out really quickly. And within 2 days, it almost looked like a normal toe again. So it's really interesting how it shows up in our body. And like you said, when you get to that root cause of that belief system or that root cause of that mindset that you've been stuck in, you can have those profound changes in your life.
Yeah, and that's, I would say I love energy so much, and I love the NLP because we do something called like a breakthrough session, which is 8 hours of work, right? And the first 3 to 4 hours is this detailed personal history where we're using the NLP to, really find the pattern and the greater problem. The one thing, like, what's the one thing you believe about yourself that connects to all of these other problems, these, anxiety, sleep, maybe trouble eating or overeating or like all of these pains or things going on in your life, relationships, whatever it is. If we can really distill down how all that works and what the root cause is, either in childhood or often actually it's during birth or past life, ancestral things, when we find that root cause and actually go into the timeline, which is mental emotion release work, and change it. I mean, truly, this is really quantum timeline healing, which we can go deeper into how that works. Is the results are so profound because we're having this retro causality, from a physics perspective, we're having this retro causality in time where the future is changing the past, and it's very strong.
Yeah, and I feel like we'd need a whole other episode to talk about quantum timelines and timelines
Yes.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
because I explain to my clients, and I'm sure you're the same, it's like every choice that you make shifts your timeline. And it's
Yeah.
like and then but it's not just your choices, it's also other people's choices. And it's like this constant, this is the thing. And I've been questioning timelines because mine's been delayed, and I know why it's been delayed because I created the circumstances around that. But at the same time, I'm like, what am I missing? Like, what's the lesson here? And then when you start to, ask those more powerful questions, then like you said, you start to shift things and you're like, oh, I see it now.
Yeah.
But it can be really complicated. And often people get lost in what they get told in readings or healings and things like that. And they
Mm,
use that as absolute, but it's not absolute. It's right for the moment. And then when you
yeah.
step out of that, you still have your freedom of choice. You still have divine will, and you can choose whatever way you want to go.
Yeah, yeah. And with these breakthrough sessions, then we go into the future and we install people's goals or, a vision that they want to make or some sort of purpose or business that they're doing. And then we do the same thing in the future. We're going to rewire their timeline to make that goal happen even easier. And so in a way, we're just bringing their timeline into harmony. And like you're saying, I truly see that all the time where these timelines, it's almost like there's no way that they're static. They're static right now. But other than that, like as soon as you make one choice or the next breath, like they're kind of open. They're open to anything can happen, right? In the best ways.
Yeah. I often draw like a diagram for people. I'm like, here's your path, and here are all the other options you can choose.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
to understand that. But it's also, you know, we don't realize the power of the mind either, right?
Yeah.
Because when you know where you're heading, when you have that vision of where that aligns for you and it is in alignment, it's amazing how much things quickly speed up to get you where you need to go.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the key to me that really ties all this together is the Qigong, where we really come from like a Taoist cosmology, alchemy, and kind of this Eastern philosophy of mindfulness, right? And learning to one, the whole idea of Qigong is we're widening the meridians so the body can hold more energy and integrate it better. And also learning to use your body as a compass, as something you can intuit, not just with your mind, but like really with the sensations in your body and regulate your nervous system. Because I think that's one of the most important things in our world right now. And also when we're talking about these major growth spurts, these changing timelines, changing, as Dr. Joe Dispenza will say, you got to change your personality to change your reality, right? That can be really disorienting. And to have some sort of practice to anchor into the body, I think is so important.
Agreed. And because our body holds so much wisdom and our body holds so much that we've been, actually, no, it's not that we don't understand. We've been conditioned to numb it. Oh, I've got a headache, I'm going to take a pill. Oh, my arm hurts, I'm going to go to the doctor. Instead of asking those questions like, what are you trying to tell me, body? What's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. I often, with my clients, I'll use the body actually. I'm sure you do the same thing, but a body as a map to the like unconscious mind. Like, what's this emotion mean? And I have a couple guides I'll look up and like, okay, this ailment or this pain or this thing in the body, really, let's ask some questions and go deeper, because once we resolve that, like we said earlier, yeah, we'll see it resolved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, it's even, and it's not just it's for long-term things too. Like it can be like autoimmune and that sort of thing. They're harder to shift because when you get to that point that your system's that fried that you have an autoimmune, it's harder to bring back that, but it's not impossible. And, that's where the mindset comes into that. And it's almost, I feel, you would agree, but it's shifting people out of that victim mindset and more into one of a creator and empowerment one makes a world of difference too.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's two things coming up. One is there's a lot of like, I guess, ideas in NLP. Like one of the main things I love to help my clients get to is that I'm in charge of my mind, therefore my results. And we can change that to I'm in charge of my mind, therefore my physiology. And it's so true, so powerful. And when people have serious ailments in their body, something I've seen that I do is the coherence healing circles, which is like Power of Eight and Lynn McTaggart's work. And it's so profound because then we can actually do some holographic quantum changes in the body. I've seen that before. And for major things like autoimmune, it's going to take maybe 5 or 6 or 7 intentions and naturopathic work and all the things. You need a team. But I've seen that stuff change because it's possible.
Yeah, I've interviewed the people who have had the change. And like you said, it does take a team. It takes a support network because we're never meant to do this alone. And we're not designed to do this alone. We're meant to be connected with everybody. We are connected with everybody, but that's why we're meant to be connected too.
Yeah.
So I guess, I don't know. Okay. They're saying, what has been one of the most profound things that you've witnessed and you've still gone, wow, I can't believe that happened?
Wow. Actually, I would say one of my favorite client stories is this woman actually from Australia reached out to me, and she came to me because she had back pain. And the back pain, she said, it's been going on for like 6 months, a year almost. Like I can't almost get out of bed. Like the doctors are giving me all these cortisol shots and all the things, and nothing's helping. And so I said, oh, yeah, I think I can help you. Let's see where it goes. And so we got into the energy work, and we did a technique called higher self therapy, which is really releasing like major emotions, and that was helping. But then we got the Ho'oponopono, which is basically to make right. Okay, make right with self, right with others, right with the planet. So very deep process. And it came to, in the Ho'oponopono, we found that she had to move out of her house about a year before this happened. And when she was moving, she like tweaked her back a little bit, and it just never got better. And in the energy, I was like, oh, we need to do Ho'oponopono with your house. And so we did that process, and we filled her house up with light and gave it a prayer, and then we cut the cords. Wow, truth bumps. And so at that point, we cut the cords. She's like, oh my God, my back feels so much better. And within 2 to 3 weeks, she was walking again, didn't need more pain medications. Like within one session, she was feeling so much better. And I've seen Ho'oponopono do similar things, but not necessarily with something like a physical object like that. That was really interesting. That tripped me out, like in the best way possible. Like, wow, okay, now you're pushing my beliefs. I love this.
It's funny because I needed to hear that, so thank you. But it's, like a lot of people don't realize like that our cars develop an energetic relationship with us, and our house, and it can
Yeah.
be things as well. And, this is where, I always think about crystals, right? Like you might have a favorite crystal and then one day you just drop it and it smashes. And the best thing I heard was that crystal wasn't meant to be in your life anymore. And, it's almost like those, if you can imagine a crystal, well, crystals have so much amazing powers anyway, but, if you can imagine like a car can do that as well,
Yeah.
like, and they don't want to let you go, and
Yeah.
you have to actually talk to the energy of it. And it's the same
Yeah.
with, and it's very similar to like land, but different because it's been man-made. But at the same time, if you've lived in it, you kind of live in a car too. You put your energy in it and you have some sort of relationship with it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So those, I would say there's also one other story where I had a client that came to me for like really severe rage. Okay. And like he was a really, really like high level dentist, was really very successful in his business, but he would come home and rage on the family. He's like, I just can't control it, and lots of addiction problems and things like this. So when we got into that, we actually used a mental emotion release for this. So this is more timeline and going back to the very first time. And this client's, the root cause was him like at a birthday party, like 2, 3 years old, and his mom like shoved like cake in his face. And it was this fun birthday party thing. But for him, going back to that experience and seeing it was like, oh, that was so traumatic for me. And when we cleared that, like the rage really came down, like he was doing so much better. And I would say that one pushed my beliefs too. And I knew these things were true, but it's always our interpretation of the events that create all the problems, right? And so even simple things are like, that wasn't a big deal. Well, actually, for you, it could have been. And we need to honor that because we don't know exactly how the unconscious mind, perceived that situation and then created beliefs around it.
Yeah. 100%. It's such a perception thing, right? Like I had a
Yeah.
client last week and she was attracting all this chaos in her life. And she's like, why is this happening? I said, well, let's see why this is happening for you. Let's have a
Yeah.
look. And
Yeah.
it came back to when she was 6, she asked to go for a walk and she just wanted to go by
Hmm.
herself. And her parents said no for whatever reason because they felt it was unsafe or whatever. And then she's like, but I don't understand because normally she could go for a walk by herself. But obviously there's external things. But for her, that meant she had to start asking permission to do everything in life. And then when
Yeah.
she waited, because she waited, then she got praised for waiting for them and for asking, so then it was this, then people pleasing started as well. And once we
Yeah.
got back to that, she was like, oh my God. I was like, I know. She goes, I can't remember my childhood. And I was like, that's not accidental because
Yeah.
you blocked out all these things that didn't align, so exactly how you said, you just sit there and you go, oh, it's so simple. And as a parent, they probably weren't doing, it's not about who's wrong or right. It's about,
Yeah.
this is just what happened. It was your perception of the event.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, our perception is our projection, and when we come back to that, when we change our perception about something, it really, I've been leaning into something called Mandela cascades. And I really think when we change our mind,
Yep.
it's like all of a sudden your whole reality can shift. Like for me, I had this happen recently where I did some deeper work on myself with somebody working on me, and when I go to this park and walk, 3, 4 days a week, and I walked past these trees that I walk by all the time, and they were a different type of tree the next day, and I was like, come on, I know they were that other tree,
I
and
have
it
a
was
similar story. I was driving to work and in this concrete like intersection there was always a tree. And I know there was a tree because I like trees and I used to wait at the lights and look at the tree. And then this one day I was like, oh, I feel like there's been a timeline shift, right? And then I'm driving
Mhm.
to work. I'm like, where's the tree? And it wasn't like it cut down or anything. It was completely concreted over. And it was one day later. I was like, there was a tree there. I know
Yeah,
there was a tree there. And even the trees around my house, they used to make certain shapes. And I remember because one looked like a dinosaur. And now it doesn't look like a dinosaur at all anymore. And I was like, oh, I can't, that's just shifted. And, sometimes you feel like the trees have walked. Anyway, like we could talk about
yeah,
Mandela effect
yeah.
all day.
It's wild. It's
It
wild.
is
So
wild.
yeah, our perception is a projection and interpretation. It's so powerful.
I know this is, yeah, this has been fun, Tom. I feel like we could keep talking about so many different things, but
Yeah.
conscious we're going to wrap up at some point. And I asked the guests, Thomas, that come on the show, if you could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
That's beautiful. I think there's this, it's so interesting. I think when something happened in like Europe and Western civilization where when the churches took over, they really took away the magic. And so there's that rebellion of like anti anything magic or special or paranormal or anything. And so there's like this, and I think that's where I just realized this recently, where like that kind of pendulum swing into ultra scientific materialistic. I think this is actually one of the things that's hurting our planet more than anything, is that consciousness of everything's mechanical and there's no such thing as spirit. I really would heal that.
Yeah. Start thinking with your heart, people, not with your heart, not with your head. Yeah. And if people want to connect with you, Thomas, how can they come and find you?
Yeah, the best place is mountainmindtricks.com and Instagram, Mountain Mind Tricks. And, you can find me there. I do one-on-ones. I've got some group coaching programs coming up, some books as well, and Qigong classes. So I know maybe some of you are in Australia. Please reach out because I do work over the pond.
Beautiful. And I'll make sure to put those details in the notes for you. But thank you, Thomas, for this conversation. This has been delightful. I didn't know where it would go. And I've always loved when I'm like, oh my gosh, hello, kindred spirit across the way. Yeah, but right. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and also how you're using NLP to shift people on so many levels as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and have a blessed day, and just blessings for all the listeners listening to this. Just love you all. Thank you.
Okay. I think, is it stopped? Probably have to edit this out. I did hit the stop. Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.